Okay. Where are we? Hey, where we go? All right. By the way, today is Thursday, as you might know, okay? If you woke up on the right side of the bed and you said the prayer properly, which we thank God for it being Thursday, as the Levites used to say in the Holy Temple, right? Hayoim yoim chamishi b'shabos sheboy hoyu alavim oimrim beveis hamikdash. The Levites would praise every single day. Of course, we didn't have Sunday and Monday. What is Sunday and Monday, by the way? Sun was they were celebrating the sun. Monday was celebrating the moon. Tuesday was celebrating another star. I'm not sure what Tuesday. Huh? Yeah. Wednesday, Thursday. Each one represented a different star because they were star worshippers. As a matter of fact, how do Jews call non-Jews in the Talmudic era? They were called Akum. Akum stands for Oivdei Chavim Umazolis, the worshippers of stars and constellations. Akum is Aleph, Kaf, Vav, final Mem. Akum, which is it is an acronym for Oivdei Chavim Umazolis, and these are the people that we're talking about over here. Yeah. So what do we say? Zuntag, Muntag, Dienstag. Because Yiddish was actually based on a particular dialect of German. And so it just, that's the way they did it. Should he have done it differently, perhaps? In Israel, we do it, we count day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. As it says, in 6 days, God created the universe and everything inside of it. And so therefore, and the 7th day, he rested. So every single day, we count towards Shabbat. So today is the 5th day, Yom Chamishi, the 5th day, which is also the day that we finish this week's quota. And we're going to start next week a new quota, brand new quota. So anybody that is just joining for the first time, this coming Sunday, Bezrat Hashem, we have a new quota. You can start from scratch. We will send on the WhatsApp group. We will place the worksheets for you to follow along in the ancient Hebrew/Aramaic languages, which you can use. All right? And anybody that didn't join the WhatsApp group already will get a link. We'll have what are those things called? That thing you put up? QR code. I'll put it up right now. Anybody that wants to join the WhatsApp group could join the QR code, and that's where we will be updating various things regarding the classes. We are getting more and more organized every day, although we still aren't very organized, but we'll get there. All right? Scan the QR code and you get into our program. Good. We already did a synopsis yesterday, so we're not going to do a synopsis today, but we will kind of focus, if anybody has any particular questions on what's going on, and maybe we will learn a couple Tosfos, because we have Shmuel. He's like, I got to learn Tosfos. Tosfos is the deeper commentator that tries to take you to the next level, and we may discuss some of those Tosfos if you don't mind. Yeah. By the way, this week, anybody that followed the previous videos and saw the Talmud from this week actually was a very analytical Talmudic program. And some of them are more, some of them are less. This week there was a lot. As a matter of fact, we ended off with either 7 or 8 things that we learned from like one line of Brisa. Right? We have like one line of Brisa. We're like, this proves us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then one other person argues and says, no, it's only 7, but Jews can't agree on anything, man. You would think that the Jewish people, because we can't agree on anything, you'd think that that we would split apart, right? Normally, when people can't agree on anything, so each guy goes their own way. How come the Jews, on one hand, we can never agree with each other, yet we're still united? How does that work? Huh? We have an ultimate truth, which means we agree on something. Huh? We agree on the depth of truth. All right, I hear. Perhaps. Reuven's laughing because he doesn't agree with that. We all have the same souls. It's. By the way, you can suggest that it is a spiritual reality and not a rational reality. The Jewish nation. By the way, the Jewish nation being one of the jobs of the Jewish nation is to bring godliness into this world, to bring revelation. Shaul, what were you saying?
He was saying that all souls are the same. But I was like, well, one soul might be nicer than the other, so they're not all exactly.
Well, that's their expression. That's not their essence. The essence of the soul, we're all the same. As a matter of fact, I am you and you are me and we are each other. 100%. And so is God. The real me is God, and whatever not God doesn't really exist. However, the way it expresses itself in different ways, right? And being that you don't necessarily see yourself as your ultimate self, but as this twisted self that God put you in, or gave you this twisted perspective, therefore you are somewhat limited in how you express yourself. And therefore one soul may express itself different than the other soul. Okay, we just went on a lot of random topics that have nothing to do with this Talmudic class. I hope they were interesting to you, but that's that. All right? Good. So we have 8 different things or 7 different things that we learned from this week's Talmud class.
That's maybe that somebody says maybe they don't like.
Who doesn't like what?
One of the 8 somebody kicks out. They said they're not sure about the one of them.
Okay, well the one
that they don't.
because the concept of tasting. There was one opinion that said if you taste a cup of wine, you could no longer do it's called pigam, and you could no longer do a Jewish ritual on that cup of wine.
And somebody doesn't like that as the 8. We don't.
Somebody says no, that is not. It is not because the person drank from it. It's because it now lacks the amount that is necessary. Right.
According to Rabashi, how does he know there's only a revius? According to Rabashi, how does he know that there's only a revius?
How does he know that there's only a revius?
Because he had more,
I don't get the question.
He wouldn't have this scenario.
Ravashi says that the entire reason for the fact that you need to let's retract. Let's shake it off. Let's retract. Let's start from the beginning over here. Okay?
Yeah.
You ready? Yeah. All right, let's retract. Okay? Listen. Okay, we actually said that if you only have one cup, you should try to do Havdalah together with Birchat HaMazon, together with the grace after meals, even though you would be pushing off Havdalah, which technically you shouldn't do unless you're in this stuck situation. Right? Good. What do you mean no? What do you mean no? Who says we're having Shalach Shudas? You didn't read the Tosfos? There's an argument whether the guy was in Shalach Shudas or whether he's starting from the beginning. I even mentioned this yesterday. There's an opinion, and each way you have to try to understand how is the Gemara understood from that perspective, assuming that is true. Right? Good. But right now, the real issue over here, okay, the real issue over here is that the fact that he had to wait to combine the 2 blessings is proof that he could not split whatever wine he had in half. Now, why couldn't he do that? Why couldn't he pour a cup of wine or take whatever he had? Okay, everything is splittable. Okay, no matter how much wine he had, it is dividable. There is nothing that we know of here in this world that's not dividable. As I went through yesterday, the scientists constantly divide. They divide things into cells, then into molecules, and then into atoms, and now there's even subatomic particles they can split. So the very fact that you have wine means that you can split it. Now the question is, why couldn't you split it and say Havdalah on part of it and Birchat HaMazon on the other part?
Because there must be a shear.
So we learned 2 separate things. Number 1, there must be a shear. Number 2, if you drink from a cup, you no longer could use that cup for the next ritual, because a ritual requires a cup that was not yet used. You still don't get how they understood what?
You have one revius of wine.
Yeah.
So you need a shear.
Let's stop. Let's understand how the person that understands 8, and then we'll go how the person that understands 7.
Yeah.
The person that understands number 7 says, The very fact that I could not split it, why can't I split it? Because I don't have enough to split, because there's a minimum amount for each one, and therefore if I split it, it will be less than that amount. Now if that's the case, why couldn't I make a bracha and drink a little bit and leave the rest? Because it's pagum. That's the way the 8 guy understands it. The way the guy that understands 7 is he says 2 things. Now, number 1, you need a revius, right? Now, and the reason why we prohibited this guy from splitting it. Sorry, the reason we prohibited the guy, correct. The reason we said you had to do it both on the same cup, huh? So again, Rav Ashi says the reason that you cannot do it on what you have is because you have exactly a revius. Okay, I'm going to put this in a bit of a different way to maybe help you understand what's going on here, because it seems like people are struggling. Okay. According to Rav Ashi, the Bryce is talking about a guy that has exactly a revius to the dot. No more, no less. Okay? According to the other opinion that learns 8 things, he's holding that no, the guy had more than a revius. He just didn't have more than 2 revius. You understand? He had more than 1, but not more than 2.
Why?
Huh?
You added a new wrinkle. You just added a new wrinkle. I have a cup, so I take
Right.
it. They use the word taste and not the word drink. So that means he's not going to mess up his revius. He's going to take. He's just going to.
What do you mean? Who says the word taste? Who says the word taste?
We use the word in the Gamara. They use taste. Let's say you have to.
Who said taste? Where do you see taste?
My Hebrew's not good, so I can't find it.
Again, there's the brisa, and we're analyzing what are the ramifications of that brisa. That's what we're
Why are you
analyzing.
saying it not more than 2 now? Because you could say without saying that.
Yeah.
You could say, I have the first guy who says there's 8 things.
Yeah.
He says that he has a revius. He
Yeah.
just tastes it. He just puts it to his lips, and that's enough for him to have tasted it. And now he still has a revius, but he has an additional problem of pagam.
Right.
So that's the first case. The second case is that he says no, it's not about pagam. It's that he's only.
So again, let's stop. If he tasted it, very good. You tell me there's a problem if he tastes a little bit, right?
So he tastes such a
Now,
much-
if there's a problem with him tasting a little bit, what would be the problem if he, instead of tasting from that cup, split it into 2 cups?
No, he only has a revius.
Oh, so that proves that you need a revius. And it also proves, so again,
There's 2 opinions. You go through the.
okay, let's start with the analysis over here, and let's understand what's going on. The very fact that we tell you that this guy has to do it on 1 automatically proves that there's a minimum measurement that you need, right? It automatically proves there's a minimum measurement. Why? Because otherwise I could have just split them into 2 different cups and used them 2 different times, right? So there's obviously a minimum measurement. That seems clear to everybody. It's obvious that there's 2 separate measurements. Now the question is, if you do have a revius, right? Why can't you make the blessing on the revius, because you have a revius, then taste some,
Tiny more.
and then make the other one?
Because of pagam. That's the first case.
What's that?
That's because of pagam. That's why. Bring the
So,
second-
so one opinion says it's because of pagam, and therefore he proves it's pagam. Rav Ashi says no, because if you taste a little bit, what's going to happen?
You're gonna have less than a revius.
You're going to have less than a revius, and if you have less than a revius,
Can't do it.
But how do we know that it means you have to make it on the top of the
if you have less than a revius, you have a problem.
How do we know it's talking about you need to make it on
Huh?
the and not drink our beers? How do we know that it's talking about you to make the bracha on our beers and not drink our beers?
Good question. Because, first of all, nothing over here indicates you have to drink.
That's what I was saying.
So, the Gemara, in its analysis, okay, I like the fact that Shmuel is asking a very deep question, much deeper than I think some of you, the question just went right over your heads. But he's asking actually a very deep question here, right? Maybe, he's saying, maybe you actually have to drink the whole revius. Right? And if you have to drink the whole revius, then obviously you can't even taste a little bit because you have to drink the whole thing.
That's why I'm saying.
The fact is, we're analyzing this brisa. Here is an important aspect of Talmudic logic. We are analyzing the words of the brisa. Right? In the words of the Brisa, we didn't tell you that he has to drink anything. Right? And therefore, what can we prove from the Brisa? Right? We can prove from the Brisa that these situations are hypothetically true. Right? What's that? Now, whether you have to drink the entire cup, that is a separate discussion entirely. Although, let's try to analyze, if you're going to suggest that you do, let's say hypothetically you do need to drink the whole entire cup. Right, so then it would prove that we need a shear, right? Why? Because otherwise you can split it in half, right? So it proves that you need a shear, but it won't prove that you have to taste because what? Right, so that proves that you need a shear, but why does it prove that you can't just taste? So your logic right now seems to be something that backs up Rav Ashi's opinion. Perhaps that might actually be Rav Ashi's logic, by the way. You might have discovered the logic of Rav Ashi. You might have. I'm serious. Right? That could be the logic of Rav Ashi. Why is Rav Ashi rejecting the other opinion? It could be he's saying, well, maybe you're required to drink the whole thing, and if you're required to drink the whole thing, then there's no relevance to pogum, because you have to drink the whole thing. Again, if you have 2 revias, obviously you could split it in 2. So you have less than 2 revias. But if you have less than 2 revias and you have to drink a full revias, then you have to make on a full revias. So perhaps Rav Ashi is saying that because of that logic, we cannot use this as absolute evidence to that to what you're saying. Perhaps that's a good point.
Or you could say
Yeah.
what he's saying is that you could just put your mouth to it and taste it, which is not going to mess up the revius. It's not even an amount.
Yeah, but it could be this way, it could be that way. Yeah, but if you have 2 options, basically means that neither of them are provable. If you have 2 options and they're both options are legitimate, then you didn't prove anything because it could be this way, it could be that way. You have to understand, when you are learning the Talmud, you have to imagine yourself as if you're in a court case. As a matter of fact, I don't know if any of you ever heard of JLI, Jewish Learning Institute. You can look it up online. Jewish Learning Institute is probably the biggest educational program in the world right now for Jewish study. They run through the Chabad house system where they create the course and then the Chabad house rabbi gives the courses. I have merited myself to giving some of those courses, right, under the Jewish Learning Institute, JLI. Now, we actually had a few courses when I was giving courses, I don't know if they still do it, on the Talmud. And the course, at least one of them, was called You Be the Judge. You Be the Judge. And essentially, it's a very powerful heading, or what you would call it, title. The reason why it's such an important title, You Be the Judge, is because when you are learning Talmud, you have to be a judge. If they're suggesting that we prove from here this, you have to say, well, is it proven or isn't proven? Right? It got to be proven. And if it's not proven, then somebody else could argue and suggest something else. Our Gemara is trying to see what is provable, not what is possible, what is provable. And therefore, it is vital for us to see ourselves as we are the judge. We need to judge the Gemara to see if the Gemara, in fact, proved itself or not. And that is the approach of a proper Talmudic scholar, that you need to do that, right? And the same thing over here that we're doing. We see this quote. We have 8 shmaminas, and each one of these shmaminas seem to be clearly evident from the text. However, Shmuel Kopel over here, he found certain ways of weakening that logic, which is very interesting because now that you weaken the logic, maybe we are understanding where Rav Ashi is coming from. Maybe he's saying that logic is not how should I say, it's not squeaky clean. There's issues with that logic, and if there's issues with that logic, then we have to reconsider whether that logic is in fact legitimate or not.
Is there not a general rule when you make Kiddush, you have to drink so much no matter what?
When you make Kiddush, again, I've mentioned this before in many classes, but in order to learn Talmud properly, you have to wipe your head clean of everything that you know from your Jewish observance today. You know why? Because your Jewish observance today is all based on the discussion of the Talmud. Now, we're in the discussion, are we? In the beginning, the middle, or the end? You don't know. Because the Talmud itself has, sometimes it'll speak about something in one tractate and speak about the same thing in a different tractate and could come to one conclusion in one tractate and a different one in a different tractate. Right? And therefore, when you're studying Talmud, if you are going to try to introduce something from your general Jewish observance knowledge into the Talmudic discussion, you may be inserting the end of the discussion into the beginning of the discussion, and therefore you're going to struggle in understanding what's going on. Because your observance comes from the Talmud, but it comes from the conclusion of the discussion, and you don't know where in the, you're never going to know where in the discussion you are. Okay, so let's look at it. We need to look at it from a complete hypothetical perspective. Okay, hypothetically, could it be that you need to drink the whole revius? Yeah. Could it be that you need to drink part of the revius? Yeah. Could it be that the person that the Brisa was talking about had less than a revius? Why not? Why not? Oh, because if there was no minimum requirement, you would be able to split it into 2 cups. So obviously there is a minimum requirement, and we learned from Rashbam. Rashbam actually cheated on us. He told us that the Gamara somewhere else concludes that minimum is a revius. We didn't say the minimum is a revius over here. Rashbam tells us, but where does Rashbam get it? He made it up. The Rashbam learned the other Talmudic places, and he's kind of telling us that for our Talmudic discussion, it would be relevant to know that in a different Talmudic discussion, they've concluded that this amount is a revius. From this brisa, the only thing we know is that there's a minimum amount, because if there was no minimum amount, you would be able to split it into 2. Now the Rashbam is just telling us that the minimum amount is a revius, because otherwise we wouldn't really have a reference to have a discussion. So now we have a reference to the discussion called the revius. Now, this person in the Brisa, we know that he has a revius. Do we know that he has more than revius? No, that doesn't say he had. It did not tell us what size cup he had. It tells us he had wine. It says he doesn't have enough, right? He doesn't have enough wine. So if he doesn't have enough wine means that there has to be a certain amount, right? So he doesn't have enough wine for 2. He only has enough wine for 1.
If you hold by Rav Ashi, you must say that it's just a revius.
Correct.
Otherwise, you'd be able
but forget about you. I know, but you're missing what I'm trying to tell you. What I'm trying to tell you is that it's not according to Rav Ashi. According to the Brisa, does the Brisa say that the guy has a revius? Is there anything in that Brisa that indicates that the guy has more than a revius? No. So that's what Rav Ashi is saying. There's nothing in the Brisa. We're trying to use the Brisa to prove a point. Rav Ashi is saying there's no proof that the guy has any more than a revius. The real question you should have is on the first guy.
Rabbi, he's saying more than that. He's saying he can't possibly have more than a revius. That's what Rav Ashi is saying.
Why?
Because if he had slightly more, let's say he had a fifth,
right?
Or however you say, 1 more, then he would be able to unpagam his kos.
How would he be able to unpagam his kos?
He would make the kiddush, he would make the thing on the Barkat Hamazon, he would taste a little bit,
right?
Then he would add...
But how do you know he doesn't have to drink the whole thing?
So I'm saying, so he can't possibly say that you have to, because he's going to save the kos. So how would he save the kos? He would save the kos by take a little bit of the wine off. Now you can tell me that halachically he needs to be pouring from revius into the thing. That's something else. But let's assume that he can take 1 ounce of liquid, take it off of his revius. So and now he has a revius here. He tastes it. Now he has a pagam.
Right.
And he pours it and he makes it.
Who said he could do that?
We do that.
Who said he could do that? I just told you can't mix in. You cannot mix in halacha into the Talmudic discussion. It's going to derail you.
Okay.
You
so
can't.
That's my logic is that he could.
Again, you cannot apply the final logic of the final halachic rule. You cannot apply that to this logic.
I'll give you a second reason why I think that's what he's saying. The reason he's saying that is because they're using the word in the Shema Minaz, they're using the word taste. Why not drink? Because they're saying that this brisa is saying that you do not have to drink the revius, that you can just taste it. Because otherwise, why would say that you would never say taste if you mean drink the revius? You would say drink it. So the fact that they're using the word in the Shema Minah that says taste is telling you that they all agree in the brisa that you don't need to drink the revius.
So again, I want to remind you, it's not, the Gemara is trying to prove from the brisa. The Gemara is not trying to tell, the Gemara has no idea what the brisa was a few hundred years before the Gemara. So the Gemara has no right to tell me what the brisa was saying because it doesn't know what it's saying. It only has a right to analyze what the implications of that brisa is, right? Now, it had to somehow find implications of that brisa, right, to imply that there was more than a revius. Okay, Rav Ashi says the brisa doesn't imply that there's more than a revius. So therefore, Rav Ashi has a strong point. He says, weird, how on earth do you know that there's more than a revius in the brisa?
I'm saying even more. I'm saying he knows that they don't have more than a revius. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, well, then how does the first opinion know that there was?
That's a good question.
So I'm saying, so you have to understand, both of them are. What's that? Huh? According to Rav Ashi, this brisa is talking about a guy that has, this brisa is, we confirmed that this brisa has to be speaking about a guy that has a revius, because if he didn't have a revius, he wouldn't have enough for either one. Rav Ashi is saying that the brisa proves that the guy has a revius. The brisa does not mention that the guy has any more than a revius. So says Rav Ashi, because the brisa doesn't, within the wording of the brisa, there's no way to prove that the brisa is talking about a guy with more than a revius. There's a way to prove that it's talking about a guy with a revius, but not more. And that's why Rav Ashi says that this brisa, Rav Ashi is not necessarily even arguing on the actual halacha. He's not, because he's arguing on what we prove from the brisa, therefore he may be arguing on the actual halacha. But in concept, in his logic, he's not arguing with the verdict of halacha. He's arguing with what can be proven from the words of the brisa. That is what he is saying. That from the wording of the brisa, there's no indication the guy has more than a revius. And if the guy has exactly a revius, then the second he drinks from it, there's less than a revius, which means that he doesn't have. Now, I do want, even though I'm yelling at you and I'm telling you guys that you can never use halacha to apply to Talmudic discussion, you have to realize that Rav Ashi and the other sages, they in fact applied their understanding of halacha to their discussions, right? So but the only question is what did they know? If the Talmud didn't tell us what they were basing it on, we cannot know what they were basing it on, because he never told us. You understand?
It makes a lot more sense now that you have to go based on whatever's inside the Gemara itself and not what you know outside of it. So based on whatever's written there, the words that are there, from those words you need to prove, disprove whatever's there
100%.
rather than from outside.
Correct. You cannot bring from the outside.
It's all hypothetical.
Now, correct, because you can't, because you don't know what's going from outside. And by the way, it could be that in a few pages in the Gemara, Rav Ashi has a particular opinion, and disagrees with other rabbis, and that might be a basis for his reasoning over here, right? That's why very often the Rashbam or Rashi will indicate what exactly is, what actually is some of this information that they're basing it on. But it needs to be coming from here. So if the Rashbam tells you that this piece of information exists, then you can, obviously he's telling you in this particular page that this information is relevant, then you can use it. But you cannot use your information from outside, from halacha, because that could be something that Rav Ashi disagrees on. It could be that in 2 pages we're going to learn that Rav Ashi disagrees with the way we're doing it today. Because the way we're doing it today was based on the conclusion, not based on everybody's opinion. Not everybody agreed with these things. You understand? So basically, in Yiddish, we'd call it a cholent. You know what a cholent is? Delicious food. That's basically a cholent is basically a mix of everything and everything under the sun. What in Europe, people were very poor, and they had to make a nice meal for Shabbat, so they would take anything and everything that they get their hands on, they put it in a big pot, they cooked it together, and they made a cholent. So even today, that's what they did. They did whatever they get their hands on, right? As a matter of fact, the real reason for cholent is because very often people in Europe, people were very poor, and they could hardly afford meat, and you're meant to eat meat on Shabbat. You're meant to eat meat on Shabbat. So what happens if you can only afford a little piece of meat for every person? Yeah? Huh? So imagine you have one piece of meat for everybody, right? You have 10 people and each person is going to get one little piece of meat. It will look horrible if you served you gave a person a plate with one little piece of meat on it, right? So what did they do? They mixed everything and everything under the sun into this big pot, and they would serve you this, they would give you this big glop, and your whole plate was full of stuff. And you had your little piece of meat there, but it was also, there was tomatoes, onions, all other stuff. And now it's like a big tasty food. And today, you go into Jerusalem, you can go Thursday night specifically, every second restaurant is serving cholent. It's like this big thing everybody's eating over there, cholent, Thursday night. Today's Thursday, if you want to go to Yerushalayim. I don't know if anybody does it here. There was one restaurant, Mendy's does it?
No, what's it called? The one with they have a stage in it?
Huh?
It's in the artist quarter. That one Hasidic place.
Oh yeah, across.
What's it called?
It's the Moroccan place.
It's Hasidic. It's right over there near.
Across from the Ari wine cellar. Well,
What's it called? Yeah, they do Thursday
They
night.
do
cholent.
Thursday night cholent?
It's a big thing. Yeah.
Thursday night cholent, you get to drink. Yeah. Anyways, yes. If you haven't tasted cholent, go for it. Trust me. Try cholent. Make sure you get it from the right people, because cholent is one of those dishes where it depends. Each place is a little different, and some places are better, some are worse. But if you have a good cholent,
What does Malay Sahi mean?
huh?
Malay Sahi.
Milsa?
I'm reading the Rabbi Ashi Omer, Tamo Pagamo.
Yeah.
Kos Shel Bracha Sarich Shiur Chadash.
Chada milsa. Milsa literally means one word. It's chada milsa, one word. One word means one concept. It is. He is, it is. In English, we would have it is in the beginning of the sentence. Here we have it is in the end of the sentence.
What's the sentence saying? Rabbi Ashi Amar.
So he says, Amar Rav Ashi, Tamoi Pogmoi, the concept of tasting it ruins the cup of wine,
Right.
and that Kaisra Bracha requires a particular amount. Chada Milsahi, it is one word, meaning one concept. It's one concept mixed together. Yeah.
What does that mean?
What does that mean? It means exactly what he's saying. He's saying that they are the same. It's the same issue. It's not two separate issues.
He's making 7 out of 8.
Again, correct. The Gemara originally has 8 things we proved from that statement, and Rav Ashi is lowering it to 7 because he's saying 2 of them are actually the exact same thing. They're not. They are not mutually exclusive. Right? Good. You following? Kanaina Hara. Wow, this is as I told you, this is an extremely analytical Gemara. We're doing very well. All right? Now, let's see Shmuel. I want to ask Shmuel. Let's see if we can figure out, well, how does the original Shema Minos system, whoever said it, how do they see a proof from this brisa that a guy has more than a revius? How do they know that a guy had more than a revius? What I would suggest, by the way, there might be another argument between Rav Ashi and these people. There could be an argument, perhaps, whether you have to drink a full revius or even majority of a revius. It could be that the first opinion holds you literally just have to taste a drop. Now, if you just have to taste a drop, how are you going to measure exactly a revius? Like, no, you can't measure exactly a revius. You stick your tongue in. What, there's no revius anymore because you stuck your tongue in?
That's what I was saying.
So it could be that there's an argument. It could be that the other opinions hold. And again, we have to look further in the Gemara. But it's important to understand from a hypothetical perspective, it could be that those opinions hold. You could literally just touch your lip and taste it. That you're not really. There's not going to be an amount. Really, there's like a minimal amount of wine that's going to be missing, but it's so minimal that we cannot assume. It's not logical. It's not logical that you have a cup with a revius that's so precisely a revius that if you even stick your tongue to it, all of a sudden it's going to be less than a revius. What would that be in the measurements? Here in Israel we go with what? Milliliters, right? Milliliters. How much is a milliliter? 1,000th of a liter? How much is a milliliter? I don't know these things.
What?
How much is a milliliter? How much of a liter is a milliliter?
Oh, 1,000 milliliters in a liter.
1,000 milliliters in a liter, right? So a liter is this big. Do you think you could tell the difference between 1,000 millimeter
And there's
from
20 drops in a milliliter.
Okay, so let's say a drop. Do you think that you can tell the difference if there's a one drop missing? So very often the Gemara does take this perspective. You have to be practical. There's a certain amount of preciseness that we cannot expect the Brisa to be speaking about, which means that perhaps the Brisa, he has a revius, but what do you mean if you're going to stick your tongue to it and you're going to taste a little bit, all of a sudden it's going to be gone? Huh? So there could be. It could be an argument, and we'll have to see later on in the Gemara. But it's important that we spent the time to kind of understand why Rav Ashi is saying what he's saying, because in the Brisa, there's no indication that he has more than a revius. And to say that he had more than a revius is in itself like, what right do you have to say that?
Okay, I think it's even bigger proof because you say that you need a drink.
Yeah.
Because technically that means that maybe even all the way up to 1.9 revius.
Again.
Why?
Why would you think, what words in the Brisa would suggest that you have any more than a revius?
Because you could have anywhere from 1 to 1.9, anything under 2. Why? Because according to the Ashi, the revius. So that means that there's no such thing as...
Again, you're working backwards right now. Okay? Don't work backwards, work forwards. Take the Brisa and tell me where in the Brisa does it suggest that there's any more than a revius? Huh?
It says you don't have enough more, you don't have more than enough above.
Okay, so you don't have enough. So if I say you don't have enough for 2, which means you definitely don't have 2 reviuses, but you definitely don't necessarily have any more than a revius. So yes, you could, meaning I can argue both ways. I can argue that you have 1.9 revius, but I could also argue that you have 1.0 revius. And since I could argue both of them, neither of them is provable, which means you cannot prove that that's what the Brisa means. So again, it's possible that they're suggesting that they may hold that in concept, if you just put your tongue to the wine, it's good enough.
There's more arguments for not, because...
Why? Who cares what?
Exactly revius is 1.9. You're able to just put your tongue on it.
First of all, again, you're still going backwards. You need to go forwards. There's no proof in the Brisa that there's more than a revius. Period.
Yes.
Period.
Who cares?
I care because you are now trying to understand the 2 opinions. You need to start with the premise that there's no proof that there's more than a revius. So neither side, you cannot say that I'm going to decide that there was more, that there was 1.9 or revius, and based on that, this Brisa proves something. No, because you cannot prove that the guy has 1.9 revius. Again, let's start with the premise that there's a revius, there's no more than a revius. There's exactly no more, no less. All right? You understand? That's the only premise that we can deal with. Now, that being the premise, Rav Ashi makes sense because he's telling you that there's no proof that there's any more than revius, therefore the second you drink from it, you're done. Right? Good. The other opinion has to deal with that same fact, is that there's no proof that there's more than revius. The other opinion seems to be indicating that you would maybe just taste a drop, and that little taste of drop, I wouldn't think that little taste would actually make a difference in the amount of wine you had in the cup.
Okay, and think it will. Now,
How would it? Again, you literally stick your tongue to
You
it.
touch your tongue, at least one drop of liquid has to spread onto the tongue. There's 20 drops in a milliliter. There's X number of milliliters in a revius.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
no, so my point is,
There's X amount. Again, if you're talking hypothetically correct, but from a rational perspective, the guy probably could not measure the difference between a revius and a revius minus a drop.
You probably won't be able to measure it.
He won't be able to measure it. And therefore, if he won't be able to measure it, it wouldn't be significant because we're talking about a case with a person. We're not talking a person with a machine. We're talking about a person. What is logically rational suggestion? Is it logically rational to suggest that if the guy tastes a small little drop, you will now know for a fact that that cup is less than a revius?
No.
So that seems to be what the other opinion says. Right?
So according to me, what I'm saying.
According to you, according to me. Yeah.
And that it doesn't matter at all what it's exactly revealed to 1.9, because they both have the same argument. It's completely.
Okay, I don't like when you're mentioning there could be. There can't be. There can't be, because again, we're trying to. Again, you are the judge. Again, you are the judge. And this Bryce is coming there, and somebody is trying to come to you as a judge and telling you that this Bryce approves a point.
Yes, I'm saying.
Right? So you need to start with a presence. Presence. What are you telling me? Are you telling me that the guy has 1.9? Proof from the Bryce that the guy has
My point is
1.9.
that regardless whether he has exactly 1 or 1.9, I'll give the same number.
Right, and therefore, what happens if he tastes it? What happens if he only had 1 and he tastes it? Is there 1 left or not? If he had exactly 1 and he tasted it.
Depends what the argument is. The argument is.
Again, if a guy has exactly 1 revius, exactly 1 revius, and then a person tasted it, is there a revius left?
No.
No.
It's pagam.
No. Not because of Pagam, period, because of math.
No, we just said.
Because of math. If you have a revius exactly, and you drank even the smallest little drop, it's less than a revius. It could be 0.999999999, but it's not.
We just went through this. It's not measurable. People don't.
So that's what I'm trying to suggest. I'm trying to suggest that the Gemara is looking at it from a rational perspective. From a rational perspective, a human being won't be able to measure the difference between 1.0000009 and 1.0000.
We made that point already, but what he's saying, which I agree with, is that I don't think you can unpagam a kos with less than a revius. Whenever I see people pouring a cup, let's say you have it, just makes sense logically. If I have a cup that's been pagam, I need at least a revius to pour in there. So therefore,
why you have to have a revius? What do you mean? The cup has to have a revius.
No, so I have a cup that has that I just.
How much do you have in that cup?
A revius, and I just.
A revius, okay.
A little bit more than a revius. I just tasted it.
Right.
Now I have a problem with pagam. I want to make a kiddush.
Okay.
So I have to pour.
You pour.
I'm saying that what he's saying makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What's your name again?
Shmuel, and it would be nice if you got off your phone,
because
right?
it fits into what
These
Rav
people
Ashi
are
said.
on their phone watching me, and you're sitting on watching me and on your phone.
It makes a lot of sense what Rav Ashi, that it fits in what Rav Ashi is saying, is that he couldn't possibly have more than, he could not possibly have another revius. There's no way he can have another revius. He has to have less than,
So he definitely has less than 2 revius, correct.
So
Okay.
the reason why Hagam and a Shir Chadash is the same thing is because what he's saying that if I had some wine in another cup more than a revius, I could just unpagam it.
But what do you need? Why do you need a? You don't need a revius in there. You need a little bit.
I'm sure somebody talks about it.
You don't need a second revius to unpagam wine. Even a drop unpagams wine.
I don't think so.
Well, how do you know that there's unpagam wine to begin with? How do you know you could unpagam wine? Because you're mixing halacha. It doesn't say anywhere here that you could unpagam wine. It doesn't say anywhere here that you could unpagam wine. You're mixing in your own knowledge of halacha. So if you're going to mix in your knowledge of halacha, I'll mix in my knowledge of halacha. But if you want, but I'm telling you is once again, don't mix in your knowledge of halacha over here. Don't speak about unpegaming wine because it's not. No one mentions it here. It was not mentioned in the Rashbam. It was not mentioned in the Rashi. It was not mentioned in the Taisus, and therefore it's not necessarily relevant to our conversation. We cannot say it's relevant to our conversation. Anyways, we had a lot of yelling over here. Can I know how to? I think we need to go to studying, and I will be asking Shaul and Yaakov David as well as Menachem Mendel. I think Menachem Mendel, right? Yeah, we're going to be asking you guys to read to me separately in the other room to see how well you've advanced in this week. Don't get so scared. I don't bite your nose if you don't know it. I'll just threaten to bite your nose.
All right, Rabbi. So again, where do you get that logic?
What logic?
You just taste and you don't need to like. Who says that's your opinion?
That what?
You can just put your tongue on it and that's good enough as tasting.
So seemingly the original would say that just putting your tongue in it would be good enough to satisfy your obligation for Havdalah. And since that would, I can explain it to you because he's saying that the reason why you cannot do that is only because of Pagam.
Right, but there is technically there's less.
Who says there's less?
If there's
What I'm
exactly-
trying to explain to you is that perhaps we're going on the fact that people cannot, when you take a little bit of a taste, it's not enough for you to know the difference whether it's more or less than a revius. Meaning you're never going to have a revius and taste and say, oh, now I see it is less than a revius. Because I tasted a little bit, now I can know. So it's an unmeasurable amount that a human being won't be able to determine that it's more or less than a revius. Right? That's what I'm suggesting as the first way of logic. And again, since he would like to say that you could just taste a drop, and if you would just taste a drop, you would not be able to see that it was less than a revius, because that little amount is not enough for you to know that it was more or less than a revius. Which means if you know for a fact I have a revius now, and you taste a drop, you will still know for a fact you have a revius. Meaning it's not enough for you to say from more to less. That's the logic it seems to be saying. Now, because it says that logic, and yet the Brisa says you still cannot do it, so it proves that Pagam. So that's the first opinion sees it.
Why is Rav Ashi saying that Pagam and Shir Chadash are the same thing?
Why is
Rav
right?
Ashi saying
Yeah.
that Pagam and new Shir are one and the same? Why is he saying that? Why does he need to say that these are not two separate things, that these things are the same? Pagam is right here.
Okay, so Rav Ashi is basically saying that for some reason, this concept of the possibility of tasting and still having a revius is not necessarily applicable. So I'll tell you what Rav Ashi's logic could be. Either his logic is that yes, if you taste it, you will be. If you have exactly a revius and you taste even a small drop, you will know that you have less than a revius. Rav Ashi seems to find that as a practically viable, and the other one doesn't seem to find that practically viable. That's number one. Number two, it could be that Rav Ashi knows that you cannot just drink a drop, you have to drink a significant amount, and if you have to drink a significant amount, then once again, this Bryce says, no, how do you know that you have a cup plus that significant amount? There's nothing in the Brysa to indicate that you have a significant amount, right?
That's proof that Rav Ashi thinks that he must have more than.
No, Rav Ashi is saying that the Brisa doesn't indicate in any way, shape, or form that a guy has more than a revius. And since it doesn't, so let me start again. Listen carefully. Let's start from the beginning. Both opinions, there's nothing in the Brisa that indicates that he has more than a revius. Rav Ashi seems to think that if a person will take a sip from a cup that has exactly a revius, he will definitely be drinking enough to realize that he no longer has a revius.
Or he could very easily, just as easily be saying that taking a tiny, tiny little taste does not become your cup. You can say that therefore.
No, what he's trying to say is that this Brisa is not proving that there's a problem with Pagam. That's what Rav Ashi is saying. He's saying this Brisa does not prove the concept of Pagam. Now, how does he prove that from the Brisa? He proves this from the Brisa by saying that it's possible the Brisa is talking about a guy that has exactly a revius. And if we're talking about a guy that has exactly a revius, right, and he drinks some, there will be less than a revius recognizable. That's what Rav Ashi says. So he seems to be arguing with the other opinion. The other opinion seems that if the guy tastes just a little bit, he won't even be able to recognize that he now has less than a revius. It will still seem like he has a revius. Rav Ashi says no. If he's going to drink from it, if he has exactly a revius, he's going to drink from it. He will drink a significant amount that will make it clearly evident that he no longer has a revius. And since Rav Ashi feels that if he drinks anything from it, he will know that now that he has less than a revius. Therefore, this Brisa does not prove that the Pagam concept exists. It only proves that the concept of Shir exists. It proves that Shir exists, but it doesn't prove, meaning it only proves that an amount exists, but it doesn't prove that if you drink from it, it's going to be Pagam. You understand? And that's why Rav Ashi holds that the whole concept of Pagam doesn't exist. Obviously, there are people that argue with him, but that's where Rav Ashi holds. And by the way, if you ask me, Rav Ashi seems to make very strong sense. Right? Again, I cannot decide between two Amoraic sages who makes more sense, but from my personal logic, Rav Ashi seems to have a very hard point. Yeah? Very strong point. Good? Very nice. All right. Now, for all you online that are actually interested in learning Talmud, instead of trying to share with me your religious views, like some people over here are doing, we are going to share on the screen right now a barcode that if you scan the barcode, you can join our WhatsApp group, which we will remind you when we have classes, and therefore you can join when we remind you there are classes. We are also going to put some worksheets on that group, etc. Okay, if you have the general rules in this class, if you have any questions on topic, we will deal with it, but off topic we will not. And that's just the way we go. We had an idea of making a podcast independent of this class, but unfortunately our producers haven't got around to it as of yet. All right, we're working on it. All right, anything else? Yeah, should we put anything else up here before we say goodbye? No. Thanks for joining, subscribe, etc. What about, hold on. What about any reasonable questions that were reasonable, or they're all just talking at Chinik and telling us what I should be listening to,
Yeah, no.
No? All a bunch of garbage. Go home, you don't want, you come here to learn. Don't come here because you want to teach. You want to teach me, maybe come to Tzfas, we'll have a discussion. But in this class, I'm the one teaching, you're the one learning. He wants to tell me which Psalms I should read to tell me how horrible I am. Trust me, my mother did a good job at that. I don't need some Christian to tell me how horrible of a person I am. You don't need them. I have plenty of people in my life to do that job for me. Don't need them.